It's the middle of the afternoon, and your kid is melting down on the kitchen floor. The full body, red-faced, nothing is okay kind of meltdown. And here's the thing I want you to notice. You're not moving. You're standing there with your phone in your hand, thumb hovering, trying to remember which one said what. Do you hold the boundary, or do you offer comfort? Do you name the feeling, or do you give them space? Is picking them up reinforcing it, or is it co-regulation? You read about this. You read about all of it. And in the one moment it actually matters, you can't remember a single thing. And you can't just move. And somewhere underneath all that noise, there's this quiet, awful thought. There was a version of you, before the books, before the accounts, before the 17 open tabs, who would have just known what to do here, who would have scooped this kid up, or not, without running it past a panel of experts in her head first.
Take a moment
And
for
you
yourself
can't quite
today.
find her anymore.
You deserve this peace.
And if you're listening to
Everything will
this with a
unfold
couple of those
exactly as
tabs
it should.
still open in another window right now, yeah, this one's for you. If you have ever felt like the more you learn about parenting, the worse you are at actually doing it, like every book made you a little more frozen instead of a little more sure.
You can relax now.
I want to talk about that today, because your instinct didn't disappear. It got buried, and it's still in there. Stay with me. Let's start with how this happened,
It's important to be
because
kind
I
to
don't think
yourself.
you're weak or
Remember that
indecisive
progress
or
isn't
bad at
always
this.
linear.
I
And
think
that's
you walked into the
perfectly okay.
single most overwhelming information
Well,
environment
you'll never
any
find
generation of
that
mothers has ever
is it
faced.
served
And you did exactly what a conscientious person does. You tried to learn. Here's the trap. There is no bottom to it. There is always another book, another expert, another method with a name and a hashtag and 10,000 people swearing it changed their lives. And the moment you finish one, the algorithm hands you the next. And the next one usually contradicts the last. One account says respond to every cry immediately or you'll damage their attachment. The next says you're creating dependence and you need to give them space. One says structure and routine are everything. The next says you're being rigid and missing their cues. Sleep train. Don't you dare sleep train. Purees. No. Baby-led weaning. Gentle parenting. No. Gentle parenting went too far. And you, trying so hard to be good at this, you take all of it in. You hold all of it at once. And then you stand in your kitchen with a real child in front of you, and you cannot move because there are now 40 voices in your head and every single one of them disagrees. That is not a knowledge problem. You don't need more information. You are drowning in information. That's a
I
noise
understand
problem.
exactly what you
And
mean.
here's the part
And
that
I
is
assure
really
you
not your fault.
everything is going
This whole
according to
thing
plan.
is an industry. There is enormous money in keeping you feeling like you're one book away from getting it right, in keeping you anxious enough to click, to buy, to follow. An expert who tells you, honestly, you already know your kid better than I do, doesn't sell a course. So that is not the message you get. The message you get, over and over, in 1,000 quiet ways, is you are not qualified
We
to
talked
raise
about
your own
this.
child without
It
us.
feels like you're not listening to me
And
at
you
all.
believed it. Of course you did. It came wrapped in research and good intentions and other mothers who seemed so sure. So slowly, without ever deciding to, you handed the authority over. You stopped asking, what do I think my kid needs? And started asking, what does the internet say I'm supposed to do? And listen, if you're recognizing yourself in any of this, take one breath and let this part land. None of it happened because something is wrong with you. It happened because you cared in the loudest possible world there has ever been to care in. That is the whole story. We're going to talk about what that's actually costing you, and then how to get it back. So let's look at what's really happening when all that advice makes you feel worse instead of better. Start with what your instinct actually is, because the advice industry has a real interest in you believing it's nothing. It isn't nothing when you feel a pull about your own child, a sense of what they need, what's off, what'll help. That is not a guess, and it is not magic. It's pattern recognition. It's your brain doing math on thousands of hours of data about one specific human being. You know, this kid's tired cry from their hurt cry, from their bored cry. You know what the meltdown is really about before they could ever tell you. Nobody taught you that. You learned it the only way it can be learned, by being there.
The advice
Now
is
here's the
general.
problem with the advice.
Your child
The advice is
specific.
general. Your child is specific. Every book, every expert, every method is written about the average child. A child who does not actually exist. They have to be. They're talking to millions of people at once. They can give you the rule that works for most kids most of the time. What they cannot do, what they will never be able to do, is account for the actual small person in your house, their exact temperament, their history, the kind of day they had, the thing only you would know. Here's what that actually looks like. The book says, when they cry at bedtime, wait. Don't go back in, or you'll create a habit. Fine advice for the average kid. But you're standing outside that door, and you can hear it. This is not the I'm just stalling cry. Something is different tonight. Maybe they're coming down with something. Maybe something scared them. The book cannot hear that. You can. And the move that actually fits this child on this night might be the exact opposite of what the rule says. That is not you failing to follow the method. That is you knowing something the method never could. You are the only person on
there
earth
is
running
the
a study
little
on this
bear.
child.
What
Sample
does the
size of
bear
one,
say?
around the clock, for their whole life. That is not less rigorous than a book. In the ways that matter for your kid, it is more. But here's what happens when you pile 40 general
there,
rules on
rule
top of
one,
your one
be
specific
perfect.
knowing.
Rule 3.
The rules
Always
don't sharpen
smile.
your
Rule
instinct.
5.
They drown
Be
it.
available.
Every
Work
external
harder.
voice you add turns the volume down on the internal one, until you're standing in your kitchen, unable to hear the single most informed signal in the room, your own read of your own child, because it's buried under a stack of strangers telling you what the average kid needs. And I want to name the other thing, because it's quieter and it cuts deeper. Somewhere in all this, parenting
truth
stopped being
rarely
something you
shouts.
do with your
It
child
waits
and started
patiently in
being
the
something
quiet
you
moments,
perform for an
asking
invisible
only
audience,
that we listen.
the experts, the other moms, the version of yourself that's keeping score. You're not just trying to soothe your kid, you're trying to soothe them correctly, the right way, the researched way, the way you could defend if someone was watching. And a child can feel that. They can feel you half here with them and half up in your own head, auditing yourself. What they need is not a perfectly researched parent. It's a present one. Because here's the truth the courses won't tell you. There is no single right answer they're hiding from you. For almost every ordinary moment of parenting, there is not one correct move you keep failing to
Hi
find.
there. I'm
There's just
so
your
glad you could
kid
make it
and
today.
you and
We
what
have
the
a
two of you
lot
work
of
out
great
together.
things planned for
The
you.
goal was never to be the perfect parent. It was to be a good enough one who is actually in the room, and good enough, present, responsive, warm,
Hi there.
beats
I'm so
flawlessly
glad you could-
informed but
How do
frozen
we move
every single
forward
time.
when we can't
So if
agree
all
on
this
where to
information
start?
is supposed to be making you a better mother, why do you feel like a worse one? We're getting to that. Because the real cost isn't your time. It's something underneath. There's a fear underneath all that searching. And it's not really a fear about your child. I'm going to say it out loud because I think you've been carrying it in the dark. The fear is, I'm not enough. On my own, without all of this, I am not enough to raise this child. I'll miss something. I'll get it wrong. I'll mess them up. Everyone else seems to know what they're doing, and I'm the only one who has to look everything up. And that fear is exactly why you can't stop reading. The searching isn't really about finding the answer. It's about outrunning the feeling that you're not qualified to be this child's mother. Every tab you open is you trying to earn a job you're terrified you don't deserve. So I need you to hear this next part slowly, because it's the whole thing. All that noise in your head is not filling a gap where your instinct should be. It is burying an instinct that is already there. You were not born without the knowing. You had it. You have it right now. What happened is that every expert you let in got placed one notch above your own voice, and then another and another, until your own knowing was at the very bottom of the pile, where you can't hear it anymore. You did not lose your instinct. You were slowly, gently, with the best of intentions, taught to distrust it. And that thing you're so afraid of, that you have to look everything up, that you're not one of the moms who just knows. I want to turn it all the way around. You are one of the moms who just knows. You always were. The looking up is not proof that you lack the instinct. It's proof of how much you love this kid. So much that you got scared of trusting yourself with something this precious and went looking for a guarantee that doesn't exist. That is not a failure of instinct. That's love that got talked into doubting itself. Think about what we've actually done to mothers. We took the most attuned, most informed, most invested person in a child's life, and we convinced her that her own judgment is the least trustworthy thing in the room, that she should override what she feels in favor of what a stranger wrote for an audience of millions. We called that being responsible, being a good, modern, informed parent. But there is nothing responsible about teaching a mother to mistrust herself. It doesn't make her safer. It makes her frozen. It makes her stand in her kitchen, an expert in her own child, unable to move, waiting for permission from people who have never met them. Your instinct was never the problem. It was never the thing that needed more research. The only thing that's broken here is the story that told you the answer is always out there. In the next book, the next account, the next expert, and never, ever in you. It was always at least partly in you. So here is the permission you've been waiting for somebody with credentials to give you. You're allowed to close the tabs. You're allowed to trust what you already know. Let me try something with you. And if there's one thing from all of this I'd want you to actually keep and come back to, let it be this. Go gently with it. Picture a friend. Someone you love, someone you think is a wonderful mother. And she calls you, and she's near tears, and she says, I don't know what I'm doing. I've read everything. I follow all the accounts, I bought the courses, and I'm more confused than when I started. I freeze over every little decision. I think I'm just not cut out for this. What would you say to her? I don't think you'd send her another article. I don't think you'd say, you're right, you should research more. I think you would stop her. I think you'd say, are you kidding me? Look at your kid. Look at how loved that child is. You're not failing because you don't know enough. You're drowning because you know too much and trust yourself too little. Put the phone down. You already know this kid better than any book ever could. And if she said, but what if I get it wrong? I think you'd say, you're going to get some things wrong. Every mother does, including the ones who wrote the books. And your kid is going to be okay because they have someone who loves them paying attention. That has always been the thing that matters most. So here's my question. Why is she allowed all of that? The trust, the permission, the benefit of the doubt? And you're allowed none of it? Why does she get, you already know? And you get, you'd better look it up. You would never hand her the cruelty you hand yourself. You'd never tell her that her love needs a citation. The faith you have in her is not too generous for you. You're allowed to keep some of it. You're allowed to be on your own side, in your own kitchen, instead of treating yourself like the one mother on earth who can't be trusted with her own child. You decided somewhere that doubting yourself was the responsible thing, that a good mother defers to the experts on everything. But constant self-doubt isn't humility. It's just a habit. And it has been talking right over the one voice that actually knows your kid. You can turn it back up, not all at once, but you can start. So where does that leave you, practically, the next time you're frozen with your phone in your hand? Because I don't want to just hand you a feeling. I want to hand you somewhere to stand. Here's the reframe. Information is a tool. It is not your boss. You are allowed to use it, and you are allowed to put it down. A hammer doesn't get to tell you what to build. The advice works for you. You do not work for the advice. So, a few things that help.
We just
Not
need to
rules to be
gently lift
perfect
these
at,
wires
just
and then make
ways
a
to turn the
precise
volume
cut right
back to
here.
where you can hear yourself.
It's quite satisfying,
First,
actually.
drastically cut the inputs. You do not need 40 voices. You need maybe one or two you actually trust, that line up with your values. And then you close the rest of the tabs. More sources do not make you more informed. Past a certain point, they just make you more paralyzed. Following 10 contradicting experts isn't research. It's just noise you've agreed to carry. Second, check your own read first. Before you reach for the phone, pause and ask yourself, what do I actually think is going on here? What does my gut say this kid needs right now? Answer that before you let anyone else answer it. Not because you'll always be right, but because that muscle has been sitting unused under a pile of strangers' opinions, and it gets stronger every single time you ask it first. Third, run the advice through your own child. When you do read something, don't ask, is this the right method? Ask, does this fit the actual kid in my house? You are allowed to take what fits and leave the rest. An expert wrote that for 1 million children. You're applying it to one. You are not failing to follow the rule. You're doing the one thing the rule could never do, adjusting it for your child.
Good job.
And fourth, the one that's really for you. The next time you're frozen, put the phone face down. Put a hand on your own chest. Take one slow breath and ask the only question that actually matters in that moment. What does this child, right here in front of me, need from me right now? Not the average child. This one. Then trust the answer enough to move. You are not going to become reckless.
I'm glad you're here.
You're not going to throw
We can
out
take
every
this journey
useful thing you've
together,
ever learned.
one step at
Trusting
a time.
yourself and staying open are not opposites. A mother who trusts her own read is calmer, and a calm mother reads her kid better than a frantic one cross-checking 4 apps. The goal was never to know everything. It was to stop being afraid of yourself in your own home. So let's go back to that kitchen. You, your phone in your hand, your kid on the floor, 40 experts shouting in your head. I want you to picture putting the phone down and just looking at your child. The real one, not the average one in the book. Yours. And trusting that the person who has loved them and watched them every single day of their life might actually know what they need, because she does. You do. None of this is a straight line. There will be days you close the tabs and feel free and trust yourself completely. And there will be days you spiral back into the search in the middle of the afternoon, reading the comments, sure that everyone else got a manual you never received. That is not failure. That's just what it is to care this much in a world this loud.
I understand
The
you might have
strength
some
isn't
concerns,
in never
but rest
doubting.
assured, we
It's
are
in
handling
coming back to your
everything
own
smoothly
knowing,
and efficiently
again
behind
and
the
again.
scenes.
Even after the whole internet told you not to. And I do want to say this gently, because it matters. There's a difference between the everyday noise we've been talking about and the things that genuinely need an expert. If something feels truly wrong with your child's health or safety, please do reach for a professional. That's its own kind of listening to your gut. And if the overwhelm itself never lifts, if the freezing and the second guessing are swallowing your days and stealing the joy, that's worth talking to someone real about, too. Picking one trusted person and leaning on them is not weakness. It's how you turn the noise down without going it completely alone. So here's the one thing I want you to carry out of this. The books are written for everyone. You are raising someone, and no one, no expert, no account, no method will ever know that specific someone the way you do. So gather the little bit of advice that actually fits, and then close the rest of the tabs. Get quiet, ask yourself first, and trust that the knowing you're so afraid you don't have has been there the whole time, waiting under the noise for you to listen. If this is the voice you didn't know you needed today, stay a while. There's more of this here. For the kitchen floor, the afternoon spiral, the hard days, whenever you need it. And if you ever put the phone down and just trusted yourself, and it turned out you were right all along, Tell me about it below. Leave it where the next mom frozen in her kitchen can find it. She needs to know her knowing is real, too. And the next time you feel like you have to look everything up before you can move, I want you to remember it was never because you don't know your child. It's because you love them enough to be scared. And the knowing has been there all along. You're doing better than you think. Trust the knowing. It's older than all the advice.